What is going on, everyone? Happy Sunday. Welcome in to GC Live Sunday Reset with your host, yours truly, Jack Veltri. The setup for today is kind of different. I'm actually still in Greenville right now. I decided I was going to either go back. I had three options. I was going to stay in Clemson with my brother, go out last night, have fun, but the bars seemed packed. So I was like, that's not happening. So I ended up just going to dinner with him. And then my other option was, do I drive back to Columbia late at night, go home, or do I go back to Greenville because my parents and sister are all staying in a hotel, and do I just do that? And I just decided to do that. So now we're outside. I'm kind of near like the Greenville Bridge, near like the river or the dam or whatever it is. So there's not really a great space to do this since I'm staying in a room with my folks, and they're kind of just now getting up. So we're doing this outside in the freezing cold today. But anyway, happy Sunday. Welcome to GC Live Sunday Reset. South Carolina picks up a 17-14 win over Clemson. Unbelievable. As Joe Paxton says, go Cox. What a game. Well, you're darn right. What a game indeed. That was incredible. I mean, what a comeback by this team. What a showing. What a game. Like, there's not really many other ways to put it. It was really something. I mean, South Carolina was down for most of that game, really trailing. And again, like, the first quarter was scoreless, and then South Carolina falls behind 7-0. They tie the game thanks to Lenore Sellers scoring a touchdown. And then Clemson retakes the lead in the second half, and it looks like the wheels. I don't know if I'd say the wheels were going to fall off, but it looked like Clemson was in prime position to kind of take control of the game. And then I feel like this slowly started to change everything in the game when Clemson decided to get cute. Go Bills! um, yeah. So again, I'm working with the elements out here, and if random people come up to me, it is what it is. I'm gonna try my best to keep it uh, normally operating. As I was saying, I think the moment this game kind of changed was when Clemson decided to get cute and run a trick play, I guess, when Cade Klubnik in the third quarter pitched a backwards handoff to Phil Maffa. And I guess Phil kind of fell back, like he slipped, and the ball came loose. And I think he was trying to get it to Bryant Wesco. I could be wrong, but yeah, it was. And South Carolina recovered, and that was after a review. It was just crazy. And again, South Carolina didn't do anything off that mistake by Clemson. But I feel like that kind of started to change everything. Like, I think that kind of woke South Carolina up a little bit. And again, I think the big story in this game that's probably not going to get talked about enough is just how good the defense was. I mean, the defense showed up, and yeah, they didn't have their best game. Yeah, Cade Klubnik made a lot of the big plays and stuff. Yeah, Clemson was moving the ball up and down the field. But you know what? Giving up 14 points is more than good enough. And when you get 2 turnovers and you hold, here's the big thing. South Carolina turned the ball over 3 times in this game. Lenore Sellers fumbled, Rocket Sanders fumbled, and Lenore Sellers threw an interception. Clemson didn't score a single point off those turnovers. I mean, that's really solid by this defense. And then we'll get back to them in a second. But fourth quarter, South Carolina's driving back down the field. They're down 14-7. And Lenore Sellers throws an interception right after, which this was ridiculous. Torricelli Simpkins picking up his second personal foul of the game when he shoved the guy on a late hit out of bounds. Like, I get it. Finish your block. But, I mean, this game has too many stakes to make mistakes like that. You know what I mean? But, like, and then right after that, the play after, of course, Sellers throws an interception in the red zone. South Carolina's defense gets another stop, and then they drive down the field and kick a field goal. And then, as we all know, Lenore Sellers. I mean, what can you say? 3rd and 15 in plus territory, and he runs into the end zone for a 20-yard touchdown. And hopefully joining me right now is my good friend, colleague, and uh, Yankee hater himself, Mr. Mike Uva. Mike, can you hear me?
I got you, Jack. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Um, Pretty hungry, pretty tired, but these are good things to have after yesterday. And I mean, what more can you really say? I mean, we'll be getting into it, but it's still one of those things that just how it played out. It really just sums up the season for South Carolina from a microcosm standpoint.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And sorry you're hungry, man. I know Bojangles isn't near you, so you're gonna have to settle for one of those northern options. Maybe get some Dunkin' or something. But all right, so let's jump into this game, man. I was kind of just recapping it for a second, and the last thing I just said was that Sellers ran into the end zone for the 20-yard touchdown. What I didn't get to was Demetrius Knight making the game-sealing interception to end the
Yep.
game. And I asked Demetrius about the play after the game, and he said, he had a conversation with the Lord, and he asked him, what he needs to do here, like help him through this, and it worked. And he read the play well. He followed Phil Maffa, and Klubnik's throw to Maffa went behind him and right into Demetrius's hands. First off, Demetrius is such a good dude that you love to see stories like that. But when you watch the final 2 minutes of that game, when Sellers scores the touchdown and Clemson's driving down the field and they look like they're on the verge of scoring, and then Demetrius gets that pick. I mean, can you just describe what it's like? I know you were at a press conference during that time. Can you just describe what it's like watching that all unfold?
Yeah, as you said, as you shared, I was on double duty yesterday, so I'm up here covering a URI football game. I have a camera that I'm using on the sideline, big old camera shooting an FCS playoff game, which ironically, you want to talk about having South Carolina ties. The starting quarterback for URI, by the way, URI hasn't played in a playoff game in 39 years. 39 years. So, of course, their first playoff game in 39 years has to be at noon, same time as the South Carolina Clemson game, out of all times for the day. Again, what's the chances? But URI's quarterback yesterday, former Clemson quarterback in great collegiate product, Hunter Helms. So after the game, Hunter sees me. They just won a playoff game. He's like, "Hey, what's the score of the USC Clemson game? Like, what's it?" And at that point, it was 14-10. So he just won a big playoff game, and now he's running his way back into the locker room because he wants to see the tail end of it. And the URI coach, Jim Fleming, his very first coaching gig was a grad assistant all the way back in 1985 for the late great Joe Morrison. So I mean, there's plenty of South Carolina ties yesterday. So I'm filming that. I have my earbud in. I'm looking at my phone. I'm trying to watch the game. I'm tweeting out on both accounts that I have, my Rhode Island account, my South Carolina account, and then of course afterwards we're in the press conference room and I'm watching everything just unfold. And I'm looking around, and you got to remind yourself, it's like, shoot, I'm not in South Carolina anymore, because I'm just like, oh, did you see that? No one's paying attention because they're doing their job. So it was one of those things where you just had to keep your mouth shut, even though in those moments, whether you're a sports fan, media, whatever the case may be, you always have those moments where you look around at someone else in the room and you're like, did you see that? No one else did. No one else did. And obviously, Jack, as you know, once I got off here last night, got home around 1 o'clock, broke down the film probably until about 3. Continuing to see plays like that. I mean, look, what's ironic is this: South Carolina, the last 2 times they've won in Clemson, they've had a player from the transfer portal make a big play, and not just any transfer player portal. I mean, not just any transfer portal player. A player that has come from a small school, Nate Atkins, and what he was able to do 2 years ago, forcing the fumble on Antonio Williams' punt return. And then, of course, Demetrius Knight, product of Charlotte, a former 49er. I think that speaks volumes of, okay, hey, look, you want a Rocket Sanders, you want a Spencer Rattler of the world, that's great. That's great. But there's a lot of talented players out there from Group 5 schools, from FCS programs, and being able to identify that talent and ask, hey, this guy looks like he's capable of playing in the SEC. Why wasn't he? But maybe he just developed a little bit later. Maybe it was issues, from a coaching standpoint. Maybe their coach just didn't help push them enough to get their name out there. There's so many different reasons, but I'll tell you this. Gamecock fans are waking up this morning saying, thank God, Demetrius Knight ended up as a Gamecock despite starting his career as a Charlotte 49er.
Yeah, no, you're totally right, man. I mean, look, D Knight is one of the best stories in recent memory. Like, again, his story is awesome, coming here to South Carolina and stuff and making that play. And you know what, man? It's games like this, as we all know, that are going to create legends. Like Sellers, whatever he does now, he's going down as a legend. Like I said it yesterday while at the game. Like South Carolina, if they ever make a statue for Lenore Sellers, that it's going to be
Spencer
that.
Rattler.
Yeah.
Spencer Rattler took to Twitter. He responded to my tweet.
I saw
basically
that.
Saying like, hey, and I would have said this for anyone. I'm not just saying it was me, but I was able to see it because my freaking phone. I mean, you Gamecock fans blowing up my phone yesterday with notifications. I know I was tweeting, so I'm just as guilty. But I did see that one from Spencer, and Spencer's spot on, and you're spot on, Jack. Those are the moments. And I was having a conversation with a South Carolina a player, one of the parents of one of the players on the team, earlier in the week, and I told them, I said, this is the type of game where if you make a big play, if you can find a way to win the game, or whatever the case may be, you'll be a legend for life in Columbia. I mean, go look at the bars and restaurants in Columbia. There's a good chance that if you walk into 5 of them, you'll probably find at least, a few of them with that Steve Tannehill picture up on the wall. Nate Atkins' catch against Clemson. That's a photo that's already getting put up places. DJ Swearinger, his hit about a decade ago. Those are the moments. So I don't know what photo they'll have necessarily with this. I don't know if Sellers went over and struck up the same pose and took a bow like we've seen with Tannehill and Dylan Thompson and, of course, Spencer Rattler 2 years ago. But there's got to be a photo that will come out of this, and we'll be like, man, that's the one. That's the photo. That's the memory. And it could be Demetrius Knight if someone had a good angle of his interception.
Yeah, look, I mean, there were so many moments yesterday. And, I mean, look, when he ran into the end zone on the game winner, he kind of had the ball out a little bit. I think that's the photo. I think that's the statue-worthy moment right there if they ever do it. And it was massive. But to get to that point, look, this game was a war. This was a dogfight, man. And, I think I was listening to you, Wes, and Chris on GC Live on Friday. And I can't remember what your score prediction was. Kind of a low-scoring game, kind of like what we saw yesterday. And I think we all knew this game was kind of going to be that gritty, tight battle. And it was, man. Like, Clemson, give them a lot of credit. They did play pretty well in this game. Like, Cade Klubnik, he kind of surprised me. He had a pretty good game. Clemson's offense was really taking advantage. Yeah, they were taking advantage of this.
If people have been paying attention to him, and that's not saying that towards you, Jack, but if people have been paying attention to him, he's improved as the season has gone on. He's not the same Cade Klubnik that we saw a year ago in Columbia.
Yeah, no, totally. And look, Cade and these receivers, they took complete advantage of the space that the secondary was giving them, because not only did they beat South Carolina in one-on-one coverage deep in space, but they also, on slant routes and short routes, they took completely advantage of all the space that was given to them. Why Clemson didn't continue? Well, they did continue to do that, but why that wasn't just continuously harped on, I'm not sure. And I think they ran the ball decently, but for Clemson, I thought they did a decent job. It's just South Carolina made enough plays in crunch time to win this game.
I'll have my story that will come out in a little bit on Gamecock Central, come out at 10 Eastern or 10 takeaways. There's a lot of things that I really harped on because, as you know, Jack, and people that read my weekly story on Gamecock Central after the day after the game, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? Sunshine, rose, whatever the case, whatever the phrase may be. But what it is you got to look at the good and the bad. And when I went back and I watched South Carolina, a lot of those third down situations when they were playing man and they were blitzing, I was very surprised with just how much cushion they were giving. And the reason I say that is this. It's tough to be critical of the defense because at the end of the day, the name of the game is score points and don't give up points, right? South Carolina's defense, they only gave up 14 points yesterday. They were put in some very difficult spots, sudden change situations where South Carolina turned the ball over 3 times, which, oh, by the way, heading into Saturday, Clemson had scored on 75% of the time right after their defense came away with the takeaway. Guess how many times that happened yesterday? None. Zilch. Nada. South Carolina's defense stepped up big time. So, again, there were things that, like the cushion, I don't understand that, because when you're blitzing, and we call it +1, and I'll explain it a little bit more in Gamecock Central when the story drops in a little bit, you could see there were free defenders coming right through. Clinton White, they called some great blitz packages. They called some great blitzes. But at the same time, too, because they weren't in press coverage, they weren't disrupting the route. And give Klubnik credit, because he was getting the ball out quickly. Now, I will say this, right? One thing that it could go back to is just poor alignment from the cornerbacks. O.D. Fortune, in a couple of situations, you look at the guys, and they were more head up than they probably should have been. They probably should have been a little bit more of a shade or two inside, and that allows you to be able to meet that receiver at that slant point. But again, I could sit here and I'll share more, but in it with the story that will be coming out shortly in Gamecock Central. They kept, for the majority, they kept passes, they kept the routes in front of them. There were a couple over the top. Give Clemson credit for making those catches. Some of those were contested throws as well. But there were times where South Carolina, I just felt like they could have made Clemson's life a little bit more challenging, a little bit more difficult if they were pressing. But again, it's tough for me to say, okay, hey, that was a dumb idea, because they only gave up 14 points.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Look, again, credit needs to be given to this defense, because look, the story of yesterday is going to be Sellers and Demetrius Knight and Shane Beamer beating Dabo and Clemson again, and Nicky Mintwari and DQ Smith running down the hill and stuff and all that.
Great video, by the way, Jack.
Oh, dude, that was so funny. Like, because I remember last year, and you know this, when sorry, my voice is out today. Last year when Clemson planted the flag at midfield at Willie B, and they took photos in the student section and stuff. I mean, Nick pointed out earlier this week, like he wasn't on the field when Clemson planted the flag and stuff, but I'm sure he would have taken an exception to that. And so obviously he wanted to kind of get back at them. And I understand, like, this is a rivalry, and things like that are allowed, in my opinion.
Can I say something real quick about the whole flag situation? Because as many people probably saw throughout college football on Saturday, it just seemed like there were, all hell was breaking loose with these flags being planted on the field. I have no issue with it. I really don't, because you don't like it, don't lose on your home field.
Exactly.
Plain and simple, right? Now, having said that, with the number of altercations that took place following games, would I be surprised if the NCAA makes a tweak to, being able to bring a flag? And I know that sounds silly, but there were so many yesterday. So many. I mean, and the fact that I believe it was I don't know if it was the Ohio State-Michigan game, pepper spray was had to be used.
That was Michigan-Ohio State.
I could see a situation where they might have to, look into that, and I wouldn't be surprised, just because it was bad yesterday. It was bad yesterday.
It was bad. We do have a quick question here from 12 Chris Smith, who asked about the whole Ohio State situation that you brought up earlier. In case you missed it, Michigan beat Ohio State in an upset. Hey, there he is. Michigan beat Ohio State yesterday as 20.5-point underdogs, and went into Columbus, won 13-10. And after the game, Ohio State took exception to Michigan planting the flag midfield and got into a whole fight, whatever you want to call it, tussle, and pepper spray had to be used by the police. The question here is from 12 Chris Smith. Should OSU get banned from the playoff for the fight? It was bad. I don't think they will.
No.
It's not going to happen.
No. It's one of those things. It was unfortunate for that situation to occur, but at the same time, too, you can't. That's just being too extreme. Too extreme.
Way too extreme. I agree. Good point. Yeah, there were a few fights yesterday, and I'm kind of glad South Carolina Clemson didn't get out of hand yesterday. But Mike, I'll ask you just a few more before you wrap up here, because you got to go over to Gillette Stadium for Patriots Colts today. We're going to see.
I'll tell you this:
Manning.
there'll be a very, very happy Marcellus Dial, I'm sure, after the game.
Oh yeah,
win or lose for the Patriots today, because we talk. A couple times a week when I see him inside the facility, and this guy, you would think he's still on South Carolina with just his passion, and Kevin Harris the same way. So looking forward to those two, catching up with them, because I'm sure they're going to be they're still on cloud nine with South Carolina's win yesterday.
Yeah. So Mike, big picture question here: what does this win mean for South Carolina? I know you wrote the story about it.
Yeah.
And if you haven't already, go ahead and read on Gamecock Central. It's free. But Mike, I'll let you do the Cliff Notes version. What does this win mean for the Gamecocks?
The bottom line is it shows that progress is being made in that building, and the foundation that is being built right now. Things are starting to happen at South Carolina that haven't happened before. And what I mean by that is this: even a decade ago, when South Carolina was winning 10-plus games season after season after season under Steve Spurrier, the buzz wasn't the same in comparison to now. And the reason why, from an external standpoint, the reason why is because you didn't have the same type of format with the college football playoff. Look at all the national pundits, the talking heads over the last couple of weeks, pounding their chests, supporting South Carolina. They weren't singing that tune earlier in the year. They haven't been singing that tune really ever. People are defending South Carolina from a national standpoint. And I'm not talking about Alyssa Lang and people that went to the university. No, I'm talking about people that their job is to cover college football. And it's like, wait a minute, South Carolina is getting talked about the same way. They're getting the respect that they deserve, and people are paying attention to them. So, look, regardless of what happens with the college football playoff, I wouldn't pull my hair out, lose sleep over it, because at the end of the day, South Carolina did exactly what they needed to do on Saturday. They've done exactly what they've needed to do for the last 6 weeks, which is win every game. And they put it now into the committee's hands to have to make a tough decision. And I think, unfortunately, because of some of the math, South Carolina might be on the outside looking in when it's all said and done. Are they one of the best 12 teams in the country right now? Absolutely. You can't argue that. Having said that, though, because of some of the losses earlier in the year, will the committee look at what's gone on down the stretch and say, hey, you know what, that's more important? I don't know. And I think, unfortunately, with some of these automatic bids, too, you look at the Big 12, you look at the Group 5, I think it's going to be tough for them to get in, but we'll wait and see. But I think, Beamer winning more games by any Gamecock coach in the first 4 years, being able to win 9 regular season games for the first time in over a decade, being picked to finish 13th in the SEC preseason, then you finish tied for 4th in the conference, with a schedule that, going back to last December, a lot of people are like, oh man, this is brutal. I'll never forget this. Shane Beamer quote tweeted when I put out saying, what's your thoughts on the schedule? And I'm paraphrasing right now, but he's like, I love it. Can't wait to compete against the best. And this man went out there and they were able to win 5 SEC games, which, oh, by the way, South Carolina has only done that twice in the last decade plus. The other time in that last decade, they did that in 2017 when they won the Outback Bowl. So they have an opportunity to go win 10 games, which, of course, that hasn't been done in over a decade. And
2013.
Bowl game, whether it be a college playoff game, they have one more opportunity at least. And man, it's been a fun year. It's been a fun year.
It has been. Real quick question here from Daniel Thompson. Any predictions on a bowl game? And the second part of this question, I'll say this. I think teams are probably going to reach out to Lenoris. Who wouldn't? But, this he just feels like a Gamecock, does he not?
He'll stay. And the reason why is his situation's so much different. He's a local kid, and he cares about the area, all right? There's been some local guys, and they'll leave, but there's something to be said about local. And this fan base, they've wanted to have one of their own at quarterback for quite some time. Well, they do. And I'm sure Lenoris has felt that love. Putting that tweet out yesterday, this is our state. He gets it. He understands it. And he would be, and look, he's going to be taken care of financially in South Carolina. Put NIL aside, that man probably doesn't have to ever buy a drink or a meal in Columbia ever again for the rest of his life just because of his performance yesterday. So I think just from a bowl standpoint too, looking at it, Jack, if they don't make the college football playoff, I know that, and I know this has been reported by other people too. I want to say maybe a week and a half ago, 2 weeks. I know that South Carolina, when they had talked to the Citrus Bowl committee, they had informed them that when they do, fill out the form and say, okay, which bowl games would we prefer first? The Citrus Bowl is at the top, and rightfully so. I think what would be interesting is if you have, say, like an Alabama or an Ole Miss, right? Does the committee go with South Carolina? Does the Citrus Bowl committee go with South Carolina? If I'm them, I go with them because guess what? It's a business, and you get to pick at that point. You get to pick. Yeah. I'm going to pick South Carolina because I know that fan base is going to travel extremely well. Alabama fans, they might look at that and say, Citrus Bowl? No, it's not a college football playoff. Yeah. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, and all you have to do, man, is go look back at the Gator Bowl and just look at how packed that place was with Carolina fans. Like, again, history speaks for itself. Gamecock fans will show up, and it's a good time right now as a South Carolina. If you're a South Carolina
fan, it's going to be a Florida. It's going to be a Florida Bowl game.
Yeah,
if it's not a college football playoff game, it's going to be the Citrus Bowl or it's going to be the old Outback Bowl, the Reliance West. But I think it comes down to the numbers. It's a numbers game, right? We talk about the college football playoff. It's a numbers game for the Citrus Bowl. I would love to see South Carolina have a different bowl game in comparison to what they're accustomed to. I mean,
Well, I think we might have just lost Mike. We'll try to get him back on. I know he's got to get going here in a few minutes. We'll try getting him back on in a bit. But if that is if that is all we hear from Mike this morning, I appreciate his time, number one. But yeah, and you're welcome for the answer on that, Daniel. My perspective on it is, look, South Carolina's 15 right now, and I know there's the discussion out there. What's the use of playing number 12 Clemson? You don't get a bump from it. They will get a bump from it. Believe it. South Carolina, in my opinion, if I had to put a number on it, they're probably going to jump up to 11 or 12, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, I would put South Carolina at 11 and go from there. Like, you have to just hope for more chaos. Number one, I've seen it thrown around. You probably want SMU to beat Clemson next week because I'll tell you why. Yes, it'd be nice for South Carolina to have on their resume a win over the ACC champs in Clemson, but that basically takes away an at-large bid because unless something crazy happens, SMU is probably a guaranteed lock for the playoff at this point. And if Clemson makes it, they're an auto bid. So you probably want SMU to win just so the ACC has one spot. Otherwise, the Big 12 is only going to have one spot. The Big 10, Oregon, Ohio State's making the playoff, y'all. Let's just cut to the chase here. And then also Penn State's going to make the playoff. Trying to think who else. SEC, Georgia, Texas are both in. And then we'll see. It comes down to, I think, Alabama, SMU if they lose, and South Carolina. And, of course, you could throw Miami into the mix, but I think Miami's done. They have losses to two unranked teams. But, hey, if you can leave Miami out of the playoff for having two losses to unranked teams, why can't you leave out an Alabama who has losses much worse to a bad Oklahoma team and a semi-bad Vanderbilt team? Vanderbilt went 6-6 this year, so they've come back down to earth quite a bit. The Cinderella story seemingly is over, and at least for now. And then South Carolina beat both those teams handedly. So I don't know what we're talking about there. And Ole Miss, I don't even think Ole Miss is going to be in the debate right now for this. Maybe we'll see. But again, all you can control is what you can control. And South Carolina did that. They went 9-3. They did what they needed to do. They won 6 straight to end the year. And I do think the committee should put them in. I do think South Carolina is deserving. I think they are a better team than Alabama. But you know what? Look, this is a good point here brought up. Bad losses should count, same as great wins. Exactly. Trying to figure this out with Uva. So I think we'll run the rest of the show here without Mike. I do appreciate him hopping on. Something came up at work where he got a call and he cut him off the stream. But yeah, I appreciate his insight. And I knew he was only going to be on for a little bit because he's got to get over to Gillette for the Pats game today. So the playoff selection show, the last one is next Sunday, 12 to 4 p.m. In the early hour, the 12 o'clock hour, that's when you're going to see the playoff get revealed. After that, it'll be the rankings and the bowl games. So South Carolina is either going to figure out where they're going right the jump, or it's going to be later in the day around that 3 to 4 o'clock range. And it might get leaked out on Twitter or whatever by these bowl sites, bowl projectionists, all that. So, but there is one more show before that on Tuesday. So the penultimate selection rankings will be on Tuesday. And then the final ones, the ones that actually determine where everything's going, is on Sunday. So, and Mike's doing well. Again, we only had him on for about 20 minutes, and then we got to see him basically just do audio for about 15, and then he hopped on right at the end. He's doing well. If you guys aren't already, go ahead and give him. I mean, I know you guys all are because it's Mike Uva we're talking about here. Like, let's be real for a second. I'll give him the shameless plug. Mike_Uva. That's MIKE_UVA on Twitter. Go ahead and give him a follow if you haven't already. I don't know why you wouldn't follow him if you haven't. And also in 2 minutes, his 10 takeaway story is coming out in a few minutes. So that'll be all awesome. What's going on, Mom? Love you so much. Thank you for tuning in. My wonderful mother. Yeah. I mean, I'll start wrapping this thing up a little bit. Now you got Christmas music blasting. Unbelievable. This is what happens when you do the makeshift live stream setup. So hopefully it doesn't get copyrighted or whatever. YouTube, have some grace on me. What a day. What a day to be a Gamecock is right. That was insane yesterday. I mean, just a great game. And it's an awesome time to be a Gamecock if you are one. I don't think you root for Clemson in the upstate because, I mean, that doesn't really do you. I'm going to walk around to try to avoid this music a little bit. I mean, if Clemson wins, I mean, what does that really do? That takes away an at-large bid at the worst. I mean, that doesn't really help you too much. What will help you is SMU winning, and that leaves a potential at-large bid open. I think that is the way you need to go here, and you just go from there. So I think you root for SMU in this case, but we'll see. But the point is, right now, just enjoy the win, enjoy it for sure, and go from there. I mean, look, yesterday was awesome, and that's really so. I think that's going to do it for right now. I think that's my cue because you got music blasting in the background, and apologies for that. Again, South Carolina picks up a 17-14 win over the Clemson Tigers in Death Valley yesterday. We'll have more reaction, and we'll do another stream on Tuesday, just like we did last week. This will be not with music blasting, but we'll do the stream on Tuesday to break down the playoff rankings, live playoff reaction show, just like we did last week. Well, that'll be an awesome time. And we'll do more impromptu, like, thoughts from this game, all that sort of stuff when I'm home and not in the outdoors when it's like 40 degrees outside and I got to deal with everything going on here, the loud music and random people coming up saying go Bills to me and stuff. So that's going to do it for right now. I know it's a short show, but again, Tuesday, we'll run it back and we'll have a great time talking college football, talking the playoff, and live reacting just like we did last week on Tuesday night, and we'll do it. So that's going to do it for now. Be sure to stay locked in to GamecockCentral.com for all live coverage and updates and more. I mean, I know there's not a game this week, but it's still National Signing Day this week. And then also we got the whole playoff rankings and stuff to talk about. And then we'll see if we get to talk to Beamer this week or not. So we'll have a lot coming up on Gamecock Central. It's also silly season, so if you're not already, if you're not a subscriber to Gamecock Central, I don't know why you aren't. This is definitely the best time to do so, to be honest. I would highly recommend it. And we're doing the $1 or trying to, let's see, I'll pull up the promo here. It is subscribed for $1 for 7 days. This is the best time to subscribe to Gamecock Central. If you listen to anything I say, like I know I speak a lot of random things, but like if you ever listen to anything I have to say, like take anything from the stream, subscribe to Gamecock Central. Like I mean it. Like if you're not already, do it. And while you're at it, after you're done watching this video, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, number one. And I hope you guys have enjoyed the stream. And then number two, hit the subscribe button for our Gamecock Central YouTube page. It's free. It takes 2 seconds. Literally hit the subscribe button and bam, all good. Doesn't cost you a dime. So definitely do that if you guys are enjoying it. So I appreciate all you guys tuning in. We'll do the Tuesday reaction show. We'll do at the buzzer talking hoops this week as well. And then Kendall and I will go live on GC live on Wednesday. And then next Sunday, we're gonna be having a long stream, I think, next week for Sunday Reset. It's gonna be crazy, reacting to the playoff and all that and the bowl games. We'll see how it goes. So I'm gonna be planning out something really cool for that, hopefully. So be sure to stay locked into Gamecock Central. Again, South Carolina beats Clemson 17-14 in Death Valley. It's time for me to head home, back to Columbia here soon. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys. Enjoy this one, and I'll see you guys again soon. Take care.